credits, crowds and puppets dying in a fire, being washed right out to sea, losing all of my front teeth, being buried half alive, bugs that burrow deep inside, wild dogs and things like that, domesticated mice and rats, not all of them just their feet, or that my whole life could be sleep. There's wheels and certain blues, oh, but mainly losing you. These days, mainly losing you. Here's a picture of the house I'd like to build for us someday. This may seem unrealistic. I'm not very good with my hands. If we had to, we could buy it or keep renting like we do. Borrow money from our parents, pool our money, me and you. All we need's four walls to hold us and a roof to keep us dry. A bed big enough to sleep in, cause I roll around at night. Keep us sheltered from the darkness and the things that lurk outside. And this growing sense of distance that keeps building in my mind. Keep us safe from birds and heights and movie credits, crowds and puppets dying in a fire, being washed right out to sea, losing all of my front teeth, being buried half alive, bugs that burrow deep inside, wild dogs and things like that, domesticated mice and rats, not all of them just their feet, or that my whole life could be sleep. There's wheels and certain blues, oh, but mainly losing you. These days, mainly losing you. These days, mainly losing you. But if the night should fall, I know, we'll just keep reaching after all. Keep on stretching toward the light and keep on staying up all night. And as we reach the end, we'll say there's gonna be another day. Keep on reaching toward the light and keep on staying up all night. And as we reach the end, we'll say there's gonna be another day. And it's birds and heights and movie credits, crowds and puppets dying in a fire, being washed right out to sea, losing all of my front teeth, being buried half alive, bugs that burrow deep inside, wild dogs and things like that, domesticated mice and rats, not all of them just their feet, or that my whole life could be sleep. There's wheels and certain blues, oh, but mainly losing you. These days, mainly losing you. These days, mainly losing you. And and it's birds and heights and movie credits.
Hello. How's everyone doing? It's Friday. There's my water. Well, I still don't have anything to say because this is still the start. This is the start of my day. Yes, it's mid-afternoon. What of it? Guy who gets out of bed at 12:30. It's not my fault, except for the parts where it's my fault. Well, I'm the EP sleeper. It's true. Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say. No, I seriously forgot what I was gonna say. Help? Help? Is there a rewind 30 seconds button on my brain? The Hepler? Well, I guess it couldn't have been that important if I didn't remember it. I'm glad that everyone, and by everyone I mean mostly just Wander, is significantly less mad at me now that now that last chapter has has resolved a lot of the questions knocking around in their mind. But yeah, we're about to dive into all sorts of well, what we have to do is there's a side of which we have not seen those events from, and that is everyone back on the ship. Eyes emoji. So that's what we're gonna do today. Haha. Explosions, disappearances. Totally normal and fine, probably. No, not really. Not really, though. Not really. That's all the time. That's what I do when I'm thinking. I just start vocalizing. I guess it's a good way to practice improvising because I don't consider I don't consider myself especially good at improvising, but I just do it idly when I'm just like going about my day or like responding to stuff, like, you know, like, I don't know what I'm looking for, like that kind of thing. I just do that all the time, pretty much. Myself. And I mean, you know, sometimes I'll like the lyrics that I make up on the spot are not about anything in like I'm not, it's not me narrating my life kind of thing. It's just me doing basically it's like keyboard predictive text but for songs. So like, what do I think a song would say? And then how can I rhyme with what I just said? And honestly, if I give it just like a little bit of thought, sometimes There are some that I pulled open voice memos and I was like, okay, we're gonna hold on to this maybe. But yeah, that's just a dumb thing I do. It's a little bit fun, a little bit silly. No one asked. I just started, for lack of anything else to say, I just started humming and then decided to elaborate. What do you say we do what we came here for? What do you say we do some funny reading? Well, it depends on if I'm haunted or not. But yes, I'm very much a fill the silence with music. Damn, you right. Yeah, I'm very much a fill the silence. I almost never just exist in silence. Like, I always have something playing in the background. Unless I'm, like, actively listening to something. Like, the fact that during these streams I don't have music playing is weird. Because I'm very... I listen to music in the shower. I listen to music in the car. I listen to music in... Well, sometimes I do play music in during the stream. But the fact that I don't have, like, my, quiet game music playlist that I do listen to when I'm raiding just on my own, it's very much an exception to the rule of my life, which is I don't like silence. It's boring and bad. I like to give my ears a toy to play with, which is songs or podcasts or shows or whatever. I mean, podcasts are shows, but, you know, it's a little bit different. We love a Go Child. We love a Go Child! So yeah, I've just been rambling about, music and sound and stuff for unreasonably long now. So, why don't we dive right in? We take my hand, come with me, and I will show you a beautiful world. Name of Your Words Destroyed My Planet, Chapter 16. So welcome to that. That's what this is. And you're here now. Hi. If you are new in chat, it's wonderful to see you. And I'm very glad that you decided to check it out. My name is Harper, but you can call me KK. My pronouns are they, it. If you are new in Twitch chat, go ahead and check out the rules. I've got them somewhere. I don't actually know where they live. They show up automatically when it's your first time, and then I don't know where you find them after that. I have found them after that, but I just don't know off the top of my head where. But I don't care. The main point is... Oh, no, I don't have that. I suppose I could, but I know Twitch itself has a place to find them. I just don't remember off the top of my head where. It doesn't matter. What matters is this. Your Words Destroyed My Planet by Unda is a million-word Homestuck fic that focuses on Dave Soulcat. It's an AU set in a future where Earth and Alternia have been consumed by a mysterious force, and humans and trolls have escaped on spaceships for their survival. As of now, it is currently unfinished, but we ball anyway. In this stream series, I do aim to read the entire fic aloud by myself, and we're making good progress. Please take note of the tags on this fic. That's what we're looking at right now. Let me check to make sure that's true. That is true. And be aware that you may be in for the discussion of some sensitive topics. If you would like to read back what I just said, you could type !fic about in chat. If you'd like a link to the fic itself on AO3, you can use !fic link. !fic song is a brief explanation of a very special feature of these streams, which is the pre-recorded song sequences. Yeah, some of these tags will make more sense later. !fic song sadly cannot tell you which song is currently happening in any given moment, but don't worry. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. And then !fic sorry is just, you know, me covering all my bases and being like, I'm sorry if this is not quite perfect. I know about it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. I'm sorry. And then finally you can use !VODs to get a link to my YouTube archive, which is where I put every VOD for this series, as well as anything else that I might stream in the future. But not that there is anything else that I'm streaming at the time, at the now. And I do generally try to get the VOD up immediately after streaming. I did forget to do that yesterday, so it took a little bit longer because I left and made pasta. But in my defense, pasta yummy. So, can you really blame me? And anyway, I think it was up by 7 anyway, so. Because then I ate the pasta, and then I was like, oh dang, I forgot to do the thing. When I got back to my desk, so I immediately started on that, so it wasn't super long of a difference. Anyway, all of that out of the way now, I present to you me selecting the correct window so that I can present to you Your Words Destroyed My Planet, Chapter 16. You watch the two shuttles launch one after the other. You feel at a loose end. Normally after a launch you're with Solix, seeing as you've seen Gamzee and Aradia off, but now you're here with Gamzee and Dave's family. There's a screen in the launch area that shows the progress of the shuttles, and it's not like you've not sat there with them before to watch things, but you've never been here with Gamzee and done that. Would you two like to join us? Mr. Egbert asks politely. Oh, if you're sure. Gamzee, would you... You trail off, looking at Gamzee as he's entirely absorbed in his palm husk typing away. Jeez, he hasn't gone anywhere, but he's still somehow on another planet. That'd be great, thanks, you tell him. You settle down on the seat next to Rose and look up at the screens. You know there's nothing you can do from here in particular, but it feels right to be here to watch. Oh, Carcat, did you hear about Diarna going on parental leave this week? Her and her wife are getting their Wiggler this week. Tomorrow, I think, Rose says brightly. Diarna is one of the psychiatrists that Rose works with, and you're reasonably sure the paperwork about her leave came across your desk at one point. Yeah, I'm happy for her. She's already done the parental thing with her wife carrying their human son and raising him. A Wiggler's gotta be easier than that, you say. Human children don't tend to be as hard to catch or as destructive on the furniture, though, Jane chips in. I distinctly remember you breaking our sofa as a little girl by using it as a trampoline. Mr. Egbert chuckles. Yes, but I didn't chew on the table or anything, Jane replies, her face flushing with embarrassment. I remember when you guys first got here, you went around fixing stuff in the house, June says. We were worried we'd broken it and didn't want to get caught, Dirk points out. Wait, what? Hal says, suddenly standing up. You look up at him, but he's staring at the screen on the wall. Worriedly, you get to your feet and look up at the screen. It looks fine to you. What? Roxy asks. Same thing. I swear it's looping. Watch the velocity, Hal says. It can't be looping. Look, the distance traveled is going up. Jane points. She's right. Yeah, but the rest of it isn't. Look, there, Hal exclaims. Holy shit, you're right. Half of the screen is looping, Dirk says slowly. Is it glitched? Rose asks. Let me see, Roxy says, and nudges Rose out of the way, enough for her to pull her tablet out of her backpack on the floor. Wait, let me log into it. I've got more access, Hal insists and squeezes in next to her. Your eyes shift across to Gamzee, who's frozen, staring down at his palm husk. Gam, can you find out if something is going on? You ask quietly, touching his arm. Gamzee's dark eyes shift from his palm husk to you. He licks his lips and swallows thickly before looking up at the screen and then back at his palm husk. Yeah, he mumbles and taps away quickly. Thanks, you tell him, and move back to Hal. It's not a glitch, not that I can see. The display program is running fine, which must mean that the data that it's getting is weird. I'm gonna try rebooting it and refreshing its cache and permissions so I can get current data into it, Hal says, with a frown of concentration firmly set onto his face. The old turn it off and turn it on again, Mr. Egbert nods, clearly trying to keep the mood light. Ah, there. Shuttle 1's at the right distance. It's a little off course, but it's correcting. I don't know why it was glitched out. Weird. Okay, and Hal trails off with a tap at the screen. Dirk is leaned over Hal's shoulder. You can't see the screen from where you're standing, but the looks of horror and confusion on their faces is alarming enough. Hold on, I'm gonna try that again. Stop touching it! Hal snaps that last part at Dirk, who's trying to take the tablet from him. Hal taps away furiously on the screen, pauses and stares at it, then repeats. Roxy is staring at it wide-eyed with one hand over her mouth. What is it? Rose asks, pulling at Roxy's sleeve. Roxy says something in a strangled tone. You're okay at Spanish, but you're not great at mixed Spanish spoken in a rush by someone with a hand over their mouth and clearly on the edge of tears. Hal, what's going on? Mr. Egbert asks, clearly and firmly. Hal flounders for a moment, looking over at his father with a lost expression on his face. I've got Shuttle 1 up again, and that's fine, but I can't find Shuttle 2 anywhere. I don't just mean that their communications aren't working, but I can't... We'd still have stats from the ship observing the shuttle, and it's not there, Hal explains brokenly. Wait, the shuttle isn't there? June yelps. Hal is caught in a helpless loop, and he can't do anything as Roxy snatches her tablet back. There's gotta be outside cameras I can get into. Wind the footage back, Roxy says in a hurry. Gamzee, do you know what's going on? You ask, turning to your Moirael. I don't know, Gamzee says in quiet horror. This isn't just a problem with these screens, then. The parts of the screen that was looping was done on purpose to hide this while people work out what the hell is going on. It looks like no one knows. There! Got them both! The resolution is shit, but it's there. Roxy exclaims triumphantly.
Okay, play it forward,
Dirk tells her. You hurry around to look over several pairs of shoulders at the screen on Roxy's lap. You can see the two bright marks of the shuttles flying close to each other. Shuttle 1 wobbles and veers further away, and then Shuttle 2 simply isn't there anymore. What? That doesn't make any sense. Jane insists, like she can be so certain that what's on screen will just stop being that way. Mr. Egbert seems confused and alarmed, same as his biological daughters. The Striders all seem lost, staring at the screen without moving. It's Rose who does first. Her hand reaches up to her mouth and she just screams. It's not a sound you've ever heard before, but it's complete and utter agony that doubles her up in pain. Roxy is sobbing uncontrollably, and Dirk and Hal seem to be on the edge of a panic attack or something. I don't understand, you say, without really meaning to.
It's the void. Mom studied it all the time. Sometimes it does this. The thing that's chasing us just clips through space sometimes, and
Dirk gestures helplessly at the screen.
You don't know that. We don't know any of that. I'm gonna see, Gamzee says firmly, speaking to the group for the first time.
Do you think this could be something else? Mr. Egbert asks Gamzee, looking right at him. He doesn't want Gamzee giving anyone else false hope, but he doesn't want people grieving for a loss that hasn't happened. It's a hard balance to meet.
It could be, Gamzee says, but doesn't go into more detail.
Go. Please. Anything you can find out. You urge him, and with that, Gamzee's gone. The commotion that's happened has attracted a lot of attention. You're not the only group of people with friends, family, and loved ones on that shuttle. Roxy's tablet is passed about as people see the same thing. There are more people from other groups crying, demanding answers. It just spreads. Whatever damage control the higher-ups had been trying to do is instantly undone. People who had come here for the launch and left return, and you all stay there, just waiting to hear something, anything. Rose stops crying after a while and just sits on the floor with her back against a wall, staring at nothing. Her brothers sit next to her. Kanaya shows up as soon as she finds out, and she waits dutifully at Rose's side. Sarava comes for Roxy. They hold her hand and just be present for her. Dirk looks like he might be ill. He's in the awful position of being grateful that his husband is okay, while being fully aware that his little brother may well be dead. As for you just sit on the ground by the bench that your group had been near before. Solix was on that shuttle. You saw him get on. Of course he would have to be on shuttle too. You should have stopped him going. You knew things were weird, and so did he, but he went anyway, and you let him, and now he's gone. And Dave... Fuck, he didn't deserve this. No one on there did. Gamzee returns eventually, causing a lot of commotion, but all he has to say to you is that there's no debris, no sign that anything happened to the shuttle. Hal's got no chance to get into the ship systems to look for himself. Everything is locked down as tight as can be. Not that it stopped him from trying. Gamzee sits on the floor and you curl up against his side. He could have been on that shuttle if he went. Maybe it would have been the other one, but you don't know. You're so grateful that he's here. He checks his palm husk from time to time, but he doesn't have anything new to tell you at any point. None of you leave because how could you? So you're all still there when Tagora walks into the room and stands on top of a bench. I have some news, he says, and immediately has 100% of everyone's attention. There's people trying to ask questions, but he doesn't listen and just goes on. Shuttle 1 has made it to the space station completely fine. From there, they've been reviewing the data that the station recorded. He continues. Are they... There was an explosion in the atmosphere of the planet. The few pictures that we have indicate that it was the shuttle's fuel pod. However, the rest of the ship wasn't there with it. Tagora adds. What does that mean? Mr. Egbert asks. The crew can, in case of emergency, eject the fuel pod. It doesn't happen automatically, but it could, in theory, happen by accident, although I've been assured that that's unlikely. We also have photographs of what we believe could be Shuttle 2 on the planet's surface. Tagora answers him. That causes a wave of questions. Is it intact? Are they alive? How did that happen? Why don't you know? Tagora holds his hands up and waits for silence. Due to the positioning of the station and the planet, it's hard to see much and be sure. However, if we are looking at the shuttle, it did appear to be upright. We still don't have contact of any kind yet. If it is the shuttle and it has landed upright, it stands to reason that at least one person on there piloted the shuttle down. Without contact through the shuttle, the sensible thing to do would be to make their way to the nearest base, which we estimate is about 8 hours away from the location we've seen. From there, any of the Shuttle 2 crew would be able to make contact with the space station unless there's technical difficulties there. We do not know any more than that at this time, he says. Shuttles don't just land right way up like that out of sheer fluke. How the fuck did it get there, though? Did it disappear? Were you somehow blocked from seeing Shuttle 2 but not Shuttle 1? It doesn't make sense. Gamzee, what are the chances that happened by accident? Are they okay in there? You ask, turning around to look at your Moirel.
Somnos is icy. They were predicting storms, so it'd be hard to do by mistake. Strange things happen. Them going missing for one, but if they landed, someone ought to be alive in there. Gamzee says, slowly and thoughtfully, with everyone hanging off of his every word. We are not speculating at this time, Tagora interrupts. Really? Gamzee says, his purple eyes narrowing at Tagora. It's irresponsible to theorize about what might have happened. Until we know more, that's all we can say. The captain, Tagora starts. The captain can do a great many things, friend, but she can't stop me from caring about my friends, my brothers and sisters that I've been working with for years, or anyone else here for that matter. She's not paying me to not care. She's not paying me to not point out that if someone was conscious enough to land the shuttle, then only so many things in there can have possibly gone wrong. Gamzee growls, deep and threatening. Tagora goes wide-eyed, likely wary of the crowd around him, possibly about to turn nasty. But you think they're okay? Mr. Egbert asks, his voice fragile. Jane squeezes him to her side, but Mr. Egbert is just looking up at Gamzee for some hint that his son might be alive. So is everyone else. Gamzee's shoulders fall a little as he looks over at everyone, instead of at Tagora, who's annoyed him. I don't see how they could identify something as a shuttle certainly enough to tell us about it, and it not be that. It isn't the kind of planet with things you could easily mistake for something like that. If it is landed, then the worst case is one person was alive to do it, and then... Gamzee doesn't say died. The space of him not saying that is the loudest thing in the room. The ship's insulated, and it had to have held enough to make a landing, so even if there's damage, it's not like anyone in there's gonna be too exposed, and the suit's heat, so there's that. If the shuttle's upright, then the landing can't have been all that bad, so likely as not, people are gonna be alive in there. Either they go to the base and make contact, or Shuttle 1 crew will go down and do a rescue mission. The shuttle's got food and water, they should be good, but we don't know what happened, so... Gamzee shrugs a little. But what sort of odds are we looking at here? Give me a number or something. Dirk presses him. It doesn't work like that, I don't know numbers. Gamzee frowns. Rose rubs the freshest tears off of her cheeks, although there's still dark mascara streaks down her face. She takes a deep breath and speaks for the first time in a good while. You can't know the odds because we don't know what happened. They just went missing. This isn't a normal situation, Rose says, her voice even but a little distant. Right, Gamzee nods. But if we knew what happened, we'd be able to know, Rose goes on. What are you talking about, Rose? Roxy asks. Mom researched this kind of thing. If this was something connected to the void, then Mom's research might cover this, Rose says. All of Mom's research got a little locked down after the adoption, and it's Human Troll Coalition government research. We don't exactly have it, Roxy points out. And we never got to see or do anything with it. The only one of us who did was Dave, Dirk adds. Well, we can get to it, Rose insists. Hey, let's maybe not loudly talk about committing crimes,
Hal says quickly, his eyes darting to Tagora. Especially as you bypassed systems you shouldn't have done already tonight. The captain has decided to let that particular slip-up go under the circumstances. There really is nothing to do now but wait, Tagora advises. My brother! Rose starts angrily, moving towards Tagora. Gamzee steps between them, reaching out to put one hand on Rose's shoulder. Your brother is capable. We're not friends, but we're friendly enough, and he's saved my life before. I know that he thinks on his feet, and he's tougher than he looks. I don't know what happened, but I do know that he's always got a plan. He sees a problem, and he's already thinking of a way out of it. You know that. Gamzee intones seriously. Chasing down something else won't help Dave or Solix or any of them. Besides which, Solix is on that shuttle, and he can fix things so fast. He's been studying everything about that shuttle. You agree? He's right. Solix is really good at his job. If they can't communicate with the shuttle now, I'm sure he's trying to fix it now. As long as he's okay enough to be awake and move, he'll be fixing things. Hal agrees. You rarely see Rose back down from anything at all, but this time she does. Her shoulders slump and her father pulls her closer to him, kissing her forehead and stroking a hand through her hair. Everyone, you're welcome to stay here if you want, but we have all of the numbers for the next of kin of the crew. If you'd like to be notified and you're not next of kin, I have a list here for you to subscribe to. We'll feed any information we get through to here, but we don't expect any changes anytime soon. I would suggest that you all go back to your hives. Tagora suggests. A certain amount of the crowd breaks away as Tagora starts leading friends of the crew through the process to sign up to news, but your little group stays put. Do you want to go home? Kanaya asks Rose gently. I don't know. I don't know if it'll help, and I'm sure I won't sleep, Rose says as she pulls away from her dad. Even if it's just to shower, change your clothes, and try to have a nap, it'll help. We can't do anything from here, Kanaya reminds her. We could make sure one of us is always here at least, change out shifts on getting sleep or food. I'm not sure how much I trust Tagora to tell us things quickly. You add that last part under your breath. That's not a bad idea, Jane agrees. I don't really want to go home. I know Dave and Solix were going to be gone anyway, but it's... Hal trails off. It's not the same. I don't think I can stay awake. I think I just want to sleep and wake up to find this was all some horrible nightmare, Roxy says shakily, and Sarava reps her back. Go home. I'll call you the moment I hear anything at all, Mr. Egbert advises her. I'll stay. I have a hard enough time sleeping as is. No way I'm sleeping through this, you add. You glance at Gamzee, and he nods in agreement. Rose and Roxy elect to go to their respective hives with their partners, although Rose makes it clear she'll be back before too long. June and Jane decide to make a run for food, and they're talking about what they'll get everyone. It's then that you catch a quiet conversation happening. The ship holds so much data. No way some of Mom's research isn't here. It's government classified. It has to be here, Dirk says quietly. Even putting aside how illegal that is, Hal starts, although his voice is just as quiet. We've basically got a lawyer in the family. Stressful emotional circumstances cry on the stand. We can get it, but could we even understand what we'd find? Dirk asks. It's doctoral shit on, quantum theory and astrophysics. Neither of us got involved in that because Dave was Bro's favorite, for however dubious a term that is, Hal says with a grimace. Yeah, I know. Dave would be the best bet, but he's not here. Do you risk that kind of cost when we might not understand the reward? Dirk whispers. Despite being a good distance away and definitely out of earshot, Mr. Egbert turns around and gives them both a warning look. What I think is happening had better not be happening kind of look, and despite Dirk and Hal both being grown men, they both straighten up a little under that look and seem appropriately chided. I know he doesn't have us microchipped. I swear he's fucking psychic, Dirk whispers. Don't get me in more trouble. I'm including felonies in that, Hal hisses at him. Ooh, boy, you're not standing near that in case they somehow get you in trouble. You've not really got any idea of how they do that, since you're not one of Mr. Egbert's kids, and you are also an adult, but that paranoid kid part of you is worried that he'll somehow tell your Lucis, even though that wouldn't make any sense. That said, if Crab Dad came out here clicking and clacking in loud disappointment, you'd feel pretty scolded too. You decide to back off a little and sit on the floor with Gamzee, resting your head against his arm. The exhaustion hits you all at once. You try not to imagine what Solix must be feeling, given this is his first ever mission and it's gone so wrong. You should have tried harder to talk him out of it, but he seemed so set on it, and it was making him so happy. He knew as much as you did about what happened with Vakari, and he went anyway. You had no grounds to stop him, but if you had... Fuck, you hope he's okay. Regret curls tightly in your stomach like a snake, and the back of your neck prickles with heat and sweat. What were the last words you said to him in person? Does he really know how much you care about him? Sure, you in theory both know how the other feels, but you've also both always held back in really big confessions or talking about it because you were either too awkward or it just felt wrong given that you were both seeing other people. It seems stupid to say something when it was just a hypothetical, and now you may never get the chance. You assumed you could say this whenever, that you'd have a lifetime in his life, no matter how that turned out for him. But now, even though Gamzee said that it's likely that someone is alive on that shuttle, you can't be sure that it's him. You were supposed to have your whole life to be his friend. How many movie nights or game sessions did you not do or call off early because you had something as small as work the next day? You never thought about there being a limit on those. And Dave, he can't just die. You've been friends for so long, and as much as he deeply annoys you at times, you're so glad he moved to your ship. You're so glad you got to be his friend, even if you two did go through an excruciating phase where you had very blatant feelings for him and didn't yet know how to ignore them. He helped you look after Solix, opened his home to him because you asked. Shit, if he doesn't make it, what's that going to do to Jade? Obviously, Dave's whole family will be devastated. You all will be, but they've been together forever, and you know something you shouldn't. You know she intends to break up with him. If Dave dies, that's going to live on her mind for the rest of her life.
I can almost hear you thinking from here,
Gamzee rumbles, his deep voice startling you back into the present. You look around at everyone else. No one seems to be paying you all that much attention right now, so you ask Gamzee something with your voice as quiet as you can make it and still have him hear you. I know what you said before, but do you think they're alive? You ask. Gamzee's leaning against the wall just like you, only he's slouched down a little to do it. His hips further forward than yours, and there's a triangular gap between his lower back and the wall, which is probably awful for his posture pole. His knees are bent up in front of him, and for a moment, Gamzee just stares blankly at his knees, his eyes dark. He seems to focus after a moment, lightening a little as he looks at you.
I don't know any more facts than you right now, he starts.
I know that, you mutter.
But I feel like they are. Like, Dave is... Well, there was that explosion and whatever, so that's generally not good, but I think they're okay,
Gamzee says quietly. You nod and rest your head on his shoulder again. Gamzee's usually got pretty good instincts, and in all honesty, you're happy with the idea of deluding yourself with good news. I know it's the worst thing to say. I know it's horrible of me, but I'm so glad you're here and not out there, you say, barely above a breath in case someone hears you.
I'm not sure I feel the same,
Gamzee replies. That makes you sit up with a jerk and look at him in alarm. You... what? You ask in horror.
I'm not much good to them here. If I'd have gone as well, Gamzee starts.
Whoa, hey, no. There's no way you going or not going would have changed anything. Whatever happened to them is something way out of anyone's control. It wouldn't have been any different with you there. You insist. This is some survivor's guilt shit, and you know it. Gamzee looks at you, his expression pained. Throughout the stress of all of this, his face paint has been smudged and smeared a lot. You can see a good deal of bare skin underneath it. Sometimes this is stupid, but sometimes you forget that he's the same age as you, which is dumb. You went to preschool with him, you started classes at the same time, but he's so much bigger than you, mostly because of his color, and it makes him stronger, too. Sometimes you forget that he's not this super-powered person who's big and unmovable. Right now, he's just a guy whose friends might be dead, who feels guilty because he was originally supposed to be on that ship, too. There's nothing you could have done if you were there, you tell him again, and Gamzee looks away again.
I think I'm gonna go shower. I'll get changed and see if anyone knows anything else before coming back. You need anything from the hive?
Gamzee asks as he heaves himself to his feet and unfolds to his full, towering height. I think I'm okay, you tell him. There's nothing at your hive that could help you right now. Ymyrel nods and leaves. All you have to do after that is wait. June and Jane return with food and coffee, and your group eats, always with one eye on the screen and a tense air all around you. After a few hours, Rose returns, half in her pajamas and the rest of her drowning in a black hoodie that you've never seen her wear before. Her face is scrubbed clean of makeup, but she does bring you all coffee. Gamzee returns after a few more hours, but he doesn't have any news. You sleep with your head on Gamzee's lap. You're not that deeply asleep because Nepetta's voice over the TV speakers catapult you into alertness. Control, this is Felid. Do you read me? Nepetta's voice rings out. Felid, this is Control. We read you. Another voice comes through. There's a delay of about 10 or 15 seconds until Nepetta speaks again. Control, we're in position to see the shuttle landing site now. It is indeed upright and seemingly intact besides the fuel pod. We can't make out any signs of anyone out there, but there's been some snowstorm activity. Nothing too heavy, but enough that we can't make much else out. We've been contacting Omega Base, but there's been no response yet. Nepetta explains.
Copy that, Felid. What's your estimated time to launch if you were to land at Omega Base?
The control person asks, and again you have to wait for a response. We've had some problems on the station with technology not working, and without Duelist and DDoS with us fixing it has been slow. So, in order to be able to leave here with everything in the state we'll need it for mining, we're looking at an ETL of 10 hours. Nepetta explains.
Understood, Felid. Advise us if anything changes, Control tells her.
Understood, Control. Over.
Nepetta signs off. 10 hours, then, Mr. Egbert says softly. 10 hours to launch, then they have to fly down, land, secure the ship at Omega, and travel there. 14 or 15 hours is more like it, Gamzee says grimly. You mentally count forward. You don't have work today, but tomorrow you do. You could call out, but how long can you stay here just waiting for news? What should you do? Looking around, you can see that Roxy is back. Most of the people who were here before have returned, even if some of them are in different clothes. The atmosphere is the same. You all want to know what's going on, and so you're waiting, but you don't know if it helps. Maybe you... Control, be advised. We're picking up signal from Shuttle 2. I'm going to open communication with them. I'm patching you through one way to the contact. Nepetta's voice says suddenly, and everyone falls completely silent. Feel it to Shuttle 2. Shuttle 2, do you read me? Nepetta asks, her voice tense. Your blood pusher is in your throat. Please, please, please be okay. Felid, this is Laika. I read you.
Dave's voice comes through the speakers, and you sag in relief. Dave's family are all holding on to each other, several of them with their hands over their mouths so they can stay silent and hear what's being said. Laika, what's your status? We lost you, and we saw your fuel detonate. We picked up the rest of the shuttle going through the atmosphere, but we couldn't determine more. Nepetta asks.
Oh, and you fucking vanished? What about that? We had some problems. I can't say exactly what myself, because I was a little injured in the crash. It's nothing major, but I lost consciousness, so I don't know precisely what the problem was. I know we had to jettison the fuel to make a safe emergency landing, but the angle of entry wasn't ideal, and it knocked our communications out. Duelist has just fixed it for us. Everyone else was fine when we landed, and Ryson took everyone aside from myself and Duelist to Omega Base since it's only 500k away. I'm fine now, no lasting injuries, and communications are back. All things considered, we're good here, Dave says, and people in the room cheer. Everyone is alive and well at last.
Nepeta is advising Dave on what to do now, but your ears are hammering with your pulse, and you lean against Gamzee, overwhelmed with the sheer weight of all that stress suddenly gone.
That's great. On the subject of staying where we are, I mentioned we're now entirely out of fuel. I've been looking up how to make hydrazine, and it should be doable. Either that, or we're gonna have to drastically rearrange the shuttles to get back.
Dave says.
Told you. Resourceful.
Gamzee smiles down at you, and you laugh in giddy relief.
We'll have to decide on a course of action. I will let you know when we need you to do anything.
Nepeta says.
I mean, chemically he's right. You could.
June starts.
To be clear, Laika, do not attempt to make any kind of rocket fuel without explicit authorization.
Nepeta warns Dave, cutting June off.
I understand, Phelan. May I offer my second solution of a really big catapult?
Dave jokes, and in this room he gets a laugh from every single person. You're all just so elated that everyone's fine that it just works. It's the best crowd Dave's ever had for a joke, and he wasn't even here for it. The one laughing the hardest, though, is Mr. Egbert, his face lined with joy and pride that his son is alive and trying to make things easier for people. Even Nepeta is amused. You can hear her trying not to laugh as she replies to him.
I'll pass your suggestion on to Aerospace Engineering, Laika. Contact us if you have any problems or if the situation changes. Ryson should be able to relay through you to us when she arrives at Omega, but if you hear from her first, do ask her to contact us.
Nepeta says, her warm tone shifting to something a little more professional at that last part.
Copy that. Laika out,
Dave says, and the communication cuts. Fuck, we gotta make him a catapult for when he gets back. Roxy giggles, wiping at her eyes with the heels of her hands.
Definitely.
Dirk agrees, with a laugh that sounds a little like he's trying not to cry with happiness. Oh God, I feel like that did a number on my heart. Are you okay, Dad? Jane asks, checking on him.
I'm fine. Oh, when that boy gets back, I'm going to hug him and not let him go,
Mr. Egbert says, a little weakly.
Dogpile on Dave, got it.
June nods. It's probably the shock at finding out that everyone is okay after all, but you somehow make it back to your hive with Gamzee and pretty much just pass out as soon as you get there. When you wake up, your eyes feel gritty and tired, you're hungry, your face has creases on it from your pillowcase, and most importantly, you're all alone. You check your palm husk and find a message from Gamzee there, so you give it a read and reply to him.
Hey, you were asleep and I didn't want to wake you. I had to see work people.
I'm awake now. Is something wrong with the mission? Did you hear something new?
Nothing like that, don't worry.
Has there been any more news?
Omega Base made contact, so it's all good.
Oh, well, that's good. I won't push you for more confidentiality and whatever. I still feel exhausted from all of that.
Stress does funny things.
Yeah, well, I'm not laughing.
Huh. I didn't think of it like that. You're funny, man.
Thanks, I think. I'm gonna try to do something with my day. Let me know what your plans are later, okay?
Okay.
Should I... I have a thing I can do for the smiley face. Guys, check this out. It's my little trick. You get up, change, and tidy up a little. Not really with any goal in mind, just for something to physically do. Needless to say, you're surprised when your doorbell rings. It's not like Gamzee would ring the bell since he lives here. It was pretty rare for Solix to come by your place since it meant the chance of running into Gamzee, and he's off on another planet right now anyway. Most of your friends would message you before coming over, and as you glance at your palm husk on the way to your door, you see that you have no new messages. Kinkri is the last person you expect to see when you open the door, but he's still the one standing there. Kinkri, what are you... I wasn't expecting you, you say, swerving that sentence in time to avoid a lecture.
I saw everything about the mission. I know you have friends there, so I thought you would likely be affected by everything that has happened. I wanted to stop by and see how you're doing.
Kinkri explains politely. Oh, that's actually really thoughtful. Sorry, I'm a little sleep deprived. Do you want to come in? you offer, feeling glad that you just happened to be cleaning already, since he was always such a stickler for neatness. Cancri steps inside your hive, and you gesture towards the lounge plank. Did you want a drink or anything? You ask hesitantly. Goodness, no. I wouldn't want to burden you with that. I just wanted to see how you were doing, he says as he sits on your lounge plank. You go to join him, still a little blindsided. So, how are you doing? I imagine the good news is a relief, but shock can do strange things to people. He asks you as you sit down. I don't know, honestly. I'm relieved, of course. I guess you just don't ever think something like that is going to happen. Even though it's obviously a dangerous job, you gesture helplessly. It's hard to comprehend the idea of such risk when so much of it is routine. I understand. Cancri nods. Yeah, and that horrible feeling where even when we didn't know what had happened, that at least Nepeta was safe, at least the people on her ship were okay. It could have been so much worse, even though obviously anything going wrong for any of them is terrible, you tell him. I can see that being a highly hurtful thing to express, even though it's a perfectly natural thought. I suppose, as well, there would be the relief that Nepeta is okay and you wouldn't have ended things on such an awful note, Cancri remarks. You pause and look at him, the way he's quietly observing you. With a groan, you lean back on the lounge plank and slide down it. Of course you know about that, you groan. People talk. Mulin especially, not to mention all of my colleagues in that restricted area that you burst into. I hope you know a lot of people were very unhappy with your actions. I had to lean on a few people to make sure you didn't face terrible consequences, you know, Cancri says. I didn't ask you to do that, you retort. Consider it a gesture of ancestral affection. Sit up, you're going to ruin your posture pole like that. Not that there's anything lesser about those with spinal injuries, but there's no reason for you to needlessly... Cancri goes on. Okay, you say loudly and sit up properly. I do wish you'd come to me about that problem, he says with a sigh. Really? You say flatly. You were investigating the mess with Vicari Retite, weren't you? And yet you mysteriously ran into this invisible roadblock for no obvious reason? He asks. Yeah, but I didn't exactly think you were in any position to help. I wouldn't have thought you'd want to, either. I was breaking protocol to do what I did, and that's not really your modus operandi, is it? You say pointedly. You don't call him a rule-following, teacher's pet, stuck-up asshole like you might have when you were a kid, but you're still thinking it. As it happens, Karkat, I often run into the same problem. I try to question why some people are in the jobs they are in, or why someone else was consulted over me, and I run into this infuriating glass ceiling. It's not even a gender, species, blood color, or mutation thing, because I've seen people of all types included in this mysterious inner circle, and other people left out for no reason. I've tried to get inside it time and again, but nothing I do seems to work. The problem you had in your investigation was simply more of the same. I can certainly empathize, Cancri explains. Oh, well, damn, I didn't know. But you're right, it's like there's this whole group of people in the know for no obvious reason, and then there's everyone else. Solix has been frustrated by it as well, you say, in surprise. It tests my patience to the limits, but as I said, I did my best to remove consequences for you, but I'm on the outside of this inner circle as well, and that's about the most I can do. Cancri sighs. You lean back on the sofa and frown at the wall. Cancri is certainly an unlikely ally in this, but in a way, you're both like your ancestor. You just show it differently. At times, you're more alike than you think. You know this, but it always somehow... Excuse you, bitch! Sorry. You know this, but it all somehow always manages to catch you off guard anyway. Thanks for the help, you say quietly. Your methods were flawed, but I understand the frustration. Cancri sighs, shrugs. It's really unfair and shady that this is happening, you add with a frown. Exactly. An invisible system of privilege and benefit is deeply unfair and ripe for exploitation, and with it being so shielded from scrutiny and review, there's no way it can be ethical at all, Cancri says emphatically. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It has to be stopped. It's shady as shit, You exclaim, gesturing wildly as you talk.
Karkat, please, language,
Cancri says with a sigh. Oh, the revolution is now, but it must be polite? You're gonna come into my hive and say I can't say shit on my own lounge plank? You challenge him.
Your word choices matter, and you risk diluting your message with the wrong ones,
Cancri reminds you. You can cram your respectability politics and tone policing right up your ass, you tell him firmly, putting his own language to work right against him.
Silence give me strength,
Cancri mutters. Our ancestors' last sermon was filled with cursing, and you know it, you remind him.
He was in a great deal of pain. You are, by contrast, just a great pain in my side sometimes,
Cancri retorts, and he seems thrown at how his actually good comeback makes you laugh.
All right, I take your point. What are we gonna do about it, is the question,
you ask.
The best I can think of is to keep each other appraised of the situation. Don't bother trying to press Disciple for information. Either she doesn't know or she isn't telling. Given that we usually run in separate circles, it might be of benefit to defer to each other when our own methods of finding the truth have proved ineffective,
Cancri suggests.
That sounds smart. All right, consider it a deal, you nod. Since it's just the two of you here, you fill him in on everything that you and Solix found out about Vicari and about the sailors. To be fair to you, it's a lot of information, but when you explain who you talked to, Cancri is able to confirm that he's had similar problems and lists a few other people that he's run into in similar situations. A lot of it does seem to be to do with the sailors, but it doesn't seem like a... You know how human ships often have this culture of almost worship about their sailors and their service? It doesn't seem like it's that. I don't know what it could be, though,
Cancri says with a sigh when you've got to the end. You don't know either, obviously. The two of you are just left in silence for a little bit as you both contemplate the little that you do know.
I am deeply glad that both crews were fine in the end. Solix has already been through enough, and after his ancestor, it seems like a cruel twist of fate for awful things to happen to both of Psionic's descendants,
Cancri says softly.
Yeah. Solix took something of Matuna's with him, you know? He told me about it a few days ago. He wanted to bring Matuna with him,
you tell him. Matuna and Cancri weren't super close, or they didn't get on, at least. Cancri was always very uptight and older than Matuna, so Matuna being a few years younger and having a stronger drive to profanity than even you meant that they bickered a lot. Matuna was always ready to apologize, but it never really changed his behavior much, which was always frustrating to Cancri, even though you and Solix thought it was the funniest thing ever.
What did he take?
Cancri asks curiously.
That old ring of Matuna's, you know,
You start.
Oh, that thing. Sorry, I know I should be more understanding that people fidget, self-soothe, and stim in their own ways, and for him, that spinning ring was very effective, but the sound of that was always so grating to me. I don't know if I have some sort of sensitivity to that sound, but in that one class I shared with Matuna, I swear he always did it as much as he could to purposefully annoy me.
Cancri groans. You know exactly the class Cancri means. Matuna was in advanced math and coding classes, whereas Cancri was just at his normal grade level. You were far closer to Matuna than Cancri was. Age probably had a factor in that, as well as your closeness to Solix. Either way, you know that although Matuna did mindlessly fiddle with all manner of things when he was thinking or just bored, he specifically used that ring in the classes he shared with Cancri just to see if he could make him burst a blood vessel from anger. Matuna, of course, swore you and Solix to secrecy, and dead or not, you hold that promise to your chest. Was Matuna vaguely pitched for Cancri, or was he just an asshole sometimes? Who knows? Maybe both. Either way, a promise is a promise. I'm sure he wouldn't do that, you say innocently.
I know, I shouldn't say that.
Cancri nods. Sucker. You're sure that if Matuna was here right now, he'd be deeply amused.
Still, Cancri says, with his expression falling into something more somber, I must admit, I was awake for a lot of last night, worrying about Solix. Of course, I was concerned for the whole crew, but I know what you mean. You agree sincerely.
That moment of shared emotion hangs between you for a few long seconds before Cancri clears his throat and looks at his watch.
Anyway, I shouldn't take up more of your time. I just wanted to check that you were doing as well as can be expected through all of this. I am also glad that we managed to clear up a little more about our mutual problem, and I hope we can come to some resolution about that in the future, Cancri says as he stands.
God, he's so prissy sometimes. You half expect him to hand you out minutes of your meeting with the way he's acting. Yeah, you say, as casually as you can, just to counter that energy. You walk him to the door and say goodbye, actually pretty touched that he thought to come and see you. He had his own motives too, but you're fine with those as well. Man, it's a weird day. When the end of the day comes, you're exhausted enough that you feel like you're ready to sleep for 1,000,000 years. You press your face into Gamzee's cool shoulder and drift off into what you hope will be blissful sleep. You dream. You can feel grass under your hands, feel the blades of it pressed against the curve of your cheekbone, and as you breathe, they tickle your nose. Rolling onto your back, you stare up at an endless, deep purple sky, something you've never seen before. Wrongness steals over you, and you sit up. There are hives nearby, buildings, all individual and separate across actual land and under a real sky. You go to take a step, and the ground falls out from beneath you, a curse ripping from your mouth as you plummet. Fuck! You screaming it wakes you up, just in time for you to hit the floor. I leaned away for that. Above you, there's a panicked flail of limbs before a wide-eyed Gamzee appears over the edge of the bed. The hell was that? He asks in alarm. I don't know. Bad dream, I think. I was falling. You say with a wince as you sit up. You sure did, Gamzee observes. Funny guy. Funny clown man. Thank you so much. You grumble and flick him on the sniff nose for that. I think I might be deaf in one ear now, he says, sticking a finger in one ear and giving it a wiggle. Gross. What time is it anyway? My blood pressure's going at light speed. You ask as you get to your feet, one hand pressed to your chest. 3:15, he says. You scrub your hands over your face. You're pretty sure you're not sleeping anytime soon. I'm gonna go have something hot to drink and try to calm down, or else I'm just gonna be tossing and turning, keeping you awake for no good reason. You sigh. Okay. Gamzee yawns and settles back down on the mattress. You walk quietly out of your respite block and into the main room. You've got plenty of teas that Rose and Kanaya have foisted off on you over the years in an effort to get you to drink things that aren't coffee. Normally it's not your thing, but you don't want to be awake right now, so for the moment you'll take a 7 Blossoms tea. That's what you grabbed from your tin of miscellaneous teas, so that's what you're going with. You sit and drink your tea, but it doesn't soothe you all that much, so when morning comes, you just give up, get dressed, and head into work early. At least if you're early, the trains will be quieter, and you can have a calm start to your workday. That'd be nice. You do not get calm. HR shares a building with the psychiatry and social work departments. Technically speaking, the concept of a building is a little nebulous within a contained ship, but to put it in an easier to understand way, you all exist in this self-contained large unit that stretches up through part of the ship. Naturally, you all have different subspecialties, so what that means in practice is that Rose is only just across the hallway from your department. Specifically, at this moment, she is in the hallway across from your department, in the middle of a dispute with her boss. You're just praying that she won't see you, but she does. Maybe I should get HR involved in this then, Rose says pointedly, and you die a little inside. Rose's boss, an older cerulean troll lady named Sirla Kasali, who manages to always be incredibly put together, turns around and looks at you. Can I help? You ask awkwardly as Sirla looks down her nose at you. Dr. Kasali thinks that I'm not fit to work and should go home and drive myself crazy with nothing to do, Rose says sharply. In Sirla's defense, Rose isn't dressed like she usually is. Her appearance isn't as polished, and she's not wearing makeup like she usually is. Not that you think she has to do that in order to look professional or anything else. It's just that Rose and Kanaya both are people who put a lot of effort into their appearance, and you usually only see either of them like this when they're really sick. Or when they'd recently thought their twin was dead. Well, that's just specific to Rose, but your point stands.
I did not say that. I simply think that given recent events, you likely do not have the emotional space to perform your job adequately and risk damaging your patients, or at least not giving them the care they need. You should take time for yourself to process. Engage in self-care, Cirilla advises her. The events you speak of aren't over. I can't process any of this until Dave gets back. Sitting around in my hive with nothing to do is only going to lead to me catastrophizing the situation, trying to predict every awful thing that could happen to him. I need my mind on work so I have something to do, some sense of normality. I know myself best, Rose argues. I hear you, but risking patience, Cirilla says patiently and somewhat patronizingly. What if... You blurt out and interrupt her. Both of them look around at you again, and you figure you really should keep going to make interrupting Cirilla worth it. What if Rose didn't have any patient interaction? What if she did other work? If she stayed in her office and worked on her patient notes, filing, prescriptions, referrals, all that stuff builds up. I'm sure she's got professional training she could even do. I know I have to do that routinely. That way, Rose gets to stay at work and have a positive distraction, but she's not dealing with patients directly, and if it gets too much and she needs to go home, she can without worrying about canceling appointments, you suggest. I suppose I could do that, Rose nods. A reasonable accommodation, I suppose, but I would want someone to check in on you routinely, Cirilla says to Rose. Karkat is right across the hall. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Right, Karkat? Rose asks. I could do that. You agree. Very well, but we will review this later to be sure that this is a wise course of action with regards to your mental health and your patient protection, Cirilla warns Rose. I understand. Rose nods. With that, Cirilla walks off, her head held high. Rose waits until Cirilla has entered the elevator and the doors have shut before she looks back at you and rolls her eyes. I can't stand her, Rose says vehemently. She's always very prim and intimidating. You agree. Rose leans on her door with a sigh, her eyes sliding shut. Thanks for the help, she says quietly. No problem. I know what you mean about distraction. How are you holding up? How are all of you doing, actually? You ask. Rose pulls a face and turns to unlock her door. She opens it and steps inside, gesturing for you to follow with a wave. Once inside, she drops into a large, comfy armchair, making the synthetic leather wheeze a little as some of the air in the cushions escapes. You follow her inside and close the door behind you, and instead of sitting on the lounge plank, you perch on the padded arm of it. Dad's trying to keep everyone together. You know how he is. June and Jane are both trying to pretend like nothing is wrong, and Jane especially is in full big sister mode. Dirk and Hal are sleeping on Dad's lounge plank. I think they're both wrestling with not committing felonies to see how Dave's doing. Roxy's... I don't know. She's in shock, I think. Rose answers. And you? You prompt her. Did you know me and Dave talk every day? When he's on the ship, I mean. I did some math on it. We exchange an average of 8,000 words a day, just over Trollian. Rose says, and picks at the arm of her armchair. I didn't know you talked that much. I figured you probably talked to him more than I do, but I didn't know it was that much. You don't talk about him all the time, you say in surprise. Rose and Dave have never seemed super clingy with each other. Obviously they love each other and they're important to one another. Honestly, sometimes you thought of them more as friends than siblings or twins even. When they're at the same event, they always talk, but they don't rush over to each other at the first possible moment. No one knows me as well as he knows me, and no one knows him as well as I do, Rose says. What about Kanaya or Jade? You ask in surprise. Obviously, that's a little different. Certainly, there's things about me that Kanaya knows that I have no wish for Dave to know. But growing up, it was always him and me, and there was stuff he couldn't tell me, things that were too awful, but he told me his feelings when he never did with anyone else. I pretend, sometimes, that I don't know him as well as I do, but he's everything. I don't know how I'd go on if he died, and when the shuttle went, Rose falters. You remember the way she screamed.
It felt like you had too. You guess.
Quite. Rose smiles a little weakly, her eyes a little watery, but she's not crying. Simply put, though, the fact of the matter is, I can't do anything until he's back. I can't continue with my life after this until he comes back, and I know he does a dangerous job, but honestly, the vast portion of the danger is things like natural disasters on the planets they go to, wildlife there, crashing one of the vehicles they have. The shuttle part is one of the safest parts of the job, statistically speaking. If I stay home, all I'm going to think about is disaster scenarios that could be happening right now. Him leaving his shuttle and losing his way and ending up like Jack in The Shining, Rose says with an almost exasperated gesture. I haven't seen that, you say after a moment's thought to be sure that you haven't. It's... never mind, old Earth film. Honestly, Dave's gone away and I'm making references like him now. Rose laughs a little bitterly.
I don't know about that. There's not nearly enough dick jokes in there for it to make it a Dave reference. You joke a little weakly, but it does make Rose smile.
True. Thanks for getting Sela off my back. I can't think about this all day. I'll lose my mind. I've barely slept, and I know I'm not going to anytime soon.
Rose groans.
Same. I've had almost no sleep. How about this? You do whatever in here, and I'll order lunch when it comes to it. We can get extra strong coffee and food as well, I guess.
You offer. You partly want to come in and be sure that she's actually coping throughout the day. That sounds great, actually, Rose says with a weak smile.
You pat her on the hand and then mentally recoil at how awkward that was. Seriously, what are you, her grandmother? You then excuse yourself back to your own office. As you work, you can't help wondering about how Rose is doing. You can't help but wonder what Solix is up to, if he's okay, if whatever happened is having some effect on him. Surely they can't have trained him for what happens when your whole shuttle vanishes and reappears. That's gotta shake a guy. You hope Dave is okay. He sounded fine on the call, but he did say that he got knocked unconscious, and Dave tends to walk off injuries and pretend he's okay. God, you remember a few times in school when his blind ninja skills were a little less ninja and he collided with something or didn't duck something because he couldn't see it coming? He'd always either pretend that it didn't happen or he'd laugh it off and lean into June acting like a goof so the issue got swept aside. Dave saying that he's fine is not much assurance that he is in fact fine. No doubt Rose is well aware of that too, and she's probably worrying about all sorts of what-if scenarios. You manage to somehow do a lot without actually achieving much. Safe to say when lunchtime comes, you're exhausted and entirely ready to just go sit with Rose for a while. Crossing into the hallway, you knock on her door, and when she says you can come in, you do. Rose is sat on her lounge plank with her knees tucked into her oversized hoodie so you can just see her feet sticking out of the bottom with mismatched socks, her shoes abandoned on the floor below her. "Do you want to order food?" you ask. "God, yes," Rose groans. You sit next to her and pick a place to order from and what you each want. You send the order off after selecting Rose's office as the delivery location. "I really don't want to talk about Dave," Rose says before you can ask anything. Her voice sounds kind of raw and you wonder if she's been crying. "We don't have to," you assure her. "Can we talk about you?" Rose asks, dropping her tablet off of the side of the lounge plank and shifting within her hoodie/impromptu tent to look at you better. No, don't do that. "Me?" you say in surprise. "I don't have patient problems to distract myself with, so give me something," Rose pleads. "And you think I have problems?" You scoff.
She's right, but she doesn't need to say it like that.
"Karkat, you're a very self-reflective person, and you tend to be very self-critical. You always have problems. I mean that in a supportive way."
Rose adds. That last part probably is an afterthought. You roll your eyes, but since you could use a second pair of eyes, or maybe a third, on your problems, and you'd be helping her, you might as well. "I had a fight with Nepeta recently," you tell her. "Tell me everything," Rose says, brightening immediately. Okay, there's backstory to this. Me and Solix didn't think that Vicari's death was as straightforward as people said, and I had the head of the suit engineering people come to me saying that he hadn't been told that it was his fault, despite people saying that it was some flaw with the suit. I figured someone hadn't ticked a box and went looking but got stonewalled everywhere, which screams cover-up to me. You explain. Oh, wow, Rose says. Right, so I went digging. I eventually ended up bursting in on one of Nepeta's important meetings because I'm sort of allowed through there because of how I go to see disciples sometimes. I kind of abused a privilege to do something I definitely wasn't allowed to do. Nepeta sent the report, though I personally think it's shit, and I went to apologize. It didn't go well. You go on.
What were you apologizing for, exactly?
Rose asks carefully. See, this is where you're smarter than past me was. I did the whole, I'm sorry for how I did the thing, but I was actually right, which understandably went badly. You sigh.
That sounds like it wouldn't be productive, but you're aware of that now, so that's something,
Rose says in a thoughtful tone. Yeah, didn't help at the time. The whole argument turned nasty, and she said that I need to stop sticking my nose in because I only fuss at problems because I'm unhappy with my own life. I asked her what she meant by that, and she basically said that she meant Gamzee. You mutter.
Basically?
Rose asks. Equius got in the middle of us before she could say it. I think he was worried about us saying things that couldn't be taken back, which, to be fair, wasn't a bad read on the situation, but given things we've talked about in the past and where that was going, I know she meant Gamzee. You explain.
Rose leans back in her seat with a wide-eyed expression on, and silence fills the room for a few seconds. That's a lot to say to someone, and it sounds like her words were said in anger. Still, how has that affected you? What are your thoughts on that? She asks.
It's been driving me crazy, if I'm honest. I know I don't go looking for problems, and I don't cause them for something to do. I'm not some drama addict, you say with a frown.
I'd agree with that. You're helpful, but you don't stir up problems.
Rose agrees. Right, but, I mean, leaving the Gamzee accusation aside, it makes me wonder if I do get involved in people's problems for my own benefit. That's a horrible thing to find out about yourself if it's true. I'm second-guessing everything. Like, even this conversation. You asked me to talk, but am I only doing this for my benefit and just telling myself that this helps you? Or when I saw you in the hallway, was it all selfish? You ask in a rush.
Rose is sitting with her hands laced together, her index fingers pointing up and tapping thoughtfully on her lips as she formats her words with care. For the sake of argument, can we set up what we mean by selfish and selfless in terms of helping people?
Rose asks. You gesture her to go ahead.
All right, so give me an example of a purely selfish way of helping someone else.
She prompts you. Only helping someone because it benefits you and not caring about them at all, doing it to make yourself look good and possibly even doing something that might end up being worse for someone in the end, or convincing someone to do something so that you get what you want, like, oh, you should break up with so-and-so, you'd be happier apart, and then immediately swooping in on their partner for yourself. You explain.
Okay, so entirely self-directed motives for your own benefit with no regard to the outcome for others. What about this? Say, for example, a friend of mine has gone through a bad breakup and needs a place to live. I also want to move out of my home, but I know that if I left my block unoccupied, my brothers would be forced to move, and that would be traumatic and painful for them. So I suggest a situation where my friend gets somewhere to live, I get to move, and no one is forced into a traumatic move. Everyone benefits, and I thought about their feelings first and gave people a choice. What would you call that?
Rose asks. I guess it's neutral or mutually beneficial? You say uncertainly.
An entirely selfless act, then. What would that look like?
Rose goes on. Okay. I'm getting lunch for you because I want to make you feel better. I'm not looking for approval from anyone else. I'm not going to brag about it so people think I'm good. I'm just doing it because I care about you. I'm not trying to change your opinion of me. I'm just doing it to help. Or donating blood even though you get nothing out of it. Or going out of your way to fix something for someone when you see them in need. You explain.
How is it then, and we're assuming for the moment that Nepeta's accusation is true, how is it that you wanting to help because it makes you feel better is not morally neutral or mutually beneficial?
Rose asks. Because, you frown, you have more than that. Rose waits patiently. Because if I'm helping someone just to make myself feel better, it's selfish. It also might color my judgment on whether my help is helpful or needed because I want to be in a situation where I can help, which makes me responsible if my help causes harm. You explain finally.
Oh, there's a lot there. Okay, quick hypothetical first. Let's say our food arrives and you spill scorching hot coffee over yourself. We're friends and I care about you. Seeing you in pain hurts me. Does that mean I shouldn't help you because I'm trying to relieve the internal pain I feel at seeing your pain? She asks.
No, you say immediately.
Okay, why is it different? Rose asks.
You open your mouth to try to answer her. It is different. You know it is. Oh, you feel the urge to help because you're empathetic. If Nepeta's right, I'm not doing what I do out of empathy. I'm doing it out of a selfish redirection of my own problems. Empathy is the normal drive to prompt people to help. This isn't that, you tell her.
All right, I can see the logic in that. So, empathy is a selfless drive to action, whereas you feel this is an impure source of motivation, which then makes your actions de facto selfish, Rose clarifies.
Right, exactly, you nod.
You mentioned earlier about bad outcomes and being responsible for that. Go into that a little more. Rose presses you.
Right, so let's go back to your coffee example before. Say I spill the coffee on myself and you rush over to help but accidentally hurt me in the process. Obviously, I'm still hurt whether you meant to or not, but I know you didn't mean it. On the other hand, if we were outside a coffee place and you wanted to impress someone and saw me spill my coffee on myself and you went to heroically and performatively help and then hurt me, it'd be different. You were only thinking about yourself, and your selfish action caused pain that you're responsible for. That's way worse than you doing it when you were genuinely just trying to help. You explain.
So, if you go into a situation with pure motivations and bad things just happen, it's sad, but you're morally in the clear. But if you act with impure motivations, then you are culpable for any negative effects because you shouldn't have been doing what you did in the first place?
Rose checks. Exactly. If Nepeta is right, all of my actions are suspect, and there's so much harm I could be guilty of causing. You say, the horror of the situation just building.
I can't help but notice that this situation brings a lot of strong ideas of should and should not into it, as well as a big moral weight. It's also very basic, Rose says.
What do you mean by basic? You ask suspiciously.
I mean just that. In the example of the coffee incident, it seems very cut and dry, but it's not. If I hurt you when I'm trying to help because of you flinching away, which makes me scratch you, then that's your action, not mine,
Rose points out. But it happened because of you helping, so if you did that selfishly, you start.
But how far back do you go? Every choice is preceded by countless numbers of choices before it. Am I not really morally responsible for everything because my parents chose to have me and all of my actions stem back to that? Are they not responsible because their actions only happen because of their parents, and so on? Also, if my choices matter, so do everyone else's. I'm not the only person in the universe who makes choices, Rose points out.
That's not what I mean, you insist.
Enlighten me then,
Rose says lightly, looking every bit like a cat toying with a mouse. Obviously, there's a point where that cuts off and everyone's responsible for their own actions, and I don't know. Your intent matters. If I do something for a selfish reason, and I'm more responsible than if I was just doing it to help, you tell her.
I'll allow you a certain amount of Good Samaritan feeling in your decisions. I'll also allow that we're responsible for the direct...
Don't worry about it, Muzz. It's okay.
I'll also allow that we're responsible for the direct outcomes of our actions, but I think you're neglecting the very real control other people have over their lives and decisions, as well as outcomes that you couldn't have predicted. We have that in law, for example. If I accidentally switch meals with someone else from me or the other person just picking up the wrong tray, then I'm not to be blamed if my seemingly identical meal had something in it that they were allergic to. I had no way to predict that happening, and it'd be absurd to demand that I never let go of my food and wander around screaming the ingredients out in case this should happen. We should act with care, but there's a diminishing return on our responsibility, Rose explains. You hesitate for a moment. What she says makes sense, and you can see that her example tracks. But when you think of the example of putting Aradia with Jade, it doesn't feel true. You meddled and put the two of them together, and now Jade wants to break up with Dave, just like Solix did with Aradia. What's worse is that apparently Aradia even has feelings for Jade, which you can only imagine will hurt Dave even worse when that comes out. It feels like it's all your fault. You destroyed their happiness to try to make yourself feel better. What are you thinking? Rose asks you gently, her hand coming to rest on your shoulder. I can see that what you're saying makes sense, but... Okay, this is theoretical and confidential, right? You ask her, looking at her carefully. Of course, Rose nods. If I wanted to nudge two friends together because I thought they'd help each other deal with a painful situation, that's a good thing. That was my intention. But if I did that, and it turns out that one of those people makes the other realize that they actually wanted to end a really important relationship, which would cause loads of pain, then I'm responsible for that. My actions led to this nightmare scenario. You insist. Rose looks confused for a moment, and then a horrible awareness dawns on her. Oh, Jade and... Oh, Rose whispers. Shit, I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm making this worse. Do you see what I mean? I told you so I could stop feeling so shitty, and that is selfish beyond... You start in a panic, but Rose cuts you off. Karkat, calm down. This is the exact kind of thinking I'm talking about, and we're going to deconstruct it together, okay? Stay with me. Rose urges you. You wait, but panic still grips you by the throat. First of all, let's, hypothetically, assume that you mean Jade, Dave, and Aradia in this. This is all hypothetical, as you said. You're looking over a lot of people's agency here. Firstly, me and Kanaya suggested putting Jade and Aradia together, so you're not solely culpable for that idea from the very start. My actions matter too, right? Rose asks. Yes, okay, I take your point, but you were just trying to help. My actions might be selfish. You counter. You don't know that mine weren't. We also don't know for sure yet if yours were, so we're going to assume you're innocent until proven guilty. Second of all, you pitched the idea of spending time with Aradia to Jade and Dave yourself. Neither had any problem with it, and Jade chose to spend time with Aradia, who also chose to allow that. You didn't make anyone do anything. You also didn't control what they talked about in that time. Rose continues. But if Jade hadn't talked to her, then this wouldn't have happened. You insist. You don't know that. If Jade really does want to break up with Dave, then... Obviously, that's awful for Dave. He'll be heartbroken, I'm sure. But Dave deserves to be with someone who wants to be with him. And Jade deserves to be with someone she wants to be with. You didn't create these feelings within Jade. If she was unhappy enough that talking to Aradia made her decide on this course of action, then she felt this beforehand. Very likely, it would have come up on its own anyway. Their anniversary is coming up, and Solix and Aradia breaking up may have made her realize that it was an option without you putting them together. You're assuming you know the genesis of this idea, and you don't. You're not a mind reader. Also, you're thinking of short-term pain. You don't know whether them staying together as they are now for the rest of their lives would be a better outcome than them moving on and finding other people. This isn't a math equation, Karkat. You don't know everything. Rose tells you patiently. It doesn't feel true. You just know you've done the wrong thing. I know I don't know everything, but I'm still responsible for this. Maybe not all of it. I know other people are involved, but my part at least was wrong. You say quietly. Sometimes a breakup can be the best thing in the long run. Didn't you tell me in passing recently that Solix seems happier now? He certainly seemed happier at the family dinner. Even if things play out the way you think, it could still be a good thing in the long run. Rose tells you gently. I don't know that. You can't know that. You counter. So, you can predict awful consequences and hold yourself accountable for them, assume awful things about events that have happened that you don't know all the details about, but when it's a good outcome, it doesn't matter or it doesn't count. How can you possibly win here?
Rose demands of you. I shouldn't get a pat on the back for doing the right thing. I'm supposed to make things better, and I'm clearly no good at it, you shout back. Your words ring around Rose's office, and you're glad that the place is soundproof. It hurt to say that. Literally, you feel like your insides are stinging. Karkat, that's not a standard you can hold yourself to. Trying to do good when you see the opportunity is a good thing to do, but this is so much heavier. You can't insist that you always help and make people happy with the purest motives possible, and then claim that that's the baseline and you don't get to feel good about it, then deem anything less than that failure. Why do you have to live like that? Rose asks you quietly. I don't know, you mutter at the carpet, unable to continue looking at her. That's not wholly true, though, is it? My ancestor died to change the world. He was this great, wise, and thoughtful man. I'm just Karkat from HR. I'm not exactly living up to his legacy. The least I can do is help the people around me, and I can't even do that right. You mumble. The door buzzes, and Rose sits up straighter. Her eyes flick from you to the door. Stay there, she tells you gently, and gets up. It's your food, because of course it is. Rose brings the bags and cups inside from the little robot that delivered everything. She sets the food on the desk and comes to sit by you on the sofa. You feel hollow now more than anything. It's not a great feeling. Rose leans against your side and puts her arm around your back. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but you're your own person, Karkat. You don't have to live up to anyone. It doesn't matter who they are. And for what it's worth, I think you're a good person. Everyone does. We don't have to talk about this more if you don't want to. Do you want to eat lunch? She asks you, her tone quiet and sympathetic. Sure, you sigh. You both move to her desk, and you end up half-heartedly picking at your food, your appetite having gone away. I can see why Nepeta's comment struck such a nerve, Rose says after a while. I guess, and that's without even bringing Gamzee into it. You sigh. Rose's expression sharpens, but you speak before she gets the chance to. I really don't want to even think about that right now, let alone talk about it, you say quickly. I understand, but if you ever do, I'm right here. Thank you for distracting me as well, although I didn't realize it'd be quite this hard on you. Sorry about that, Rose says, clearly concerned for you. It's fine, you say. It's not, but you say it anyway. I'm not really hungry. I'd better go. You excuse yourself and quickly leave Rose's office before she can stop you. You retreat to the comparative safety of your office and sit down with your head in your hands. You don't go around thinking about your ancestor all the time. Not that it'd make any difference to him since he's super dead. But
Yahoo!
But I just got jump scared. Thank you for the follow. But you'd be lying if you said he doesn't influence you. There's just this pressure about who you could be, who you could grow into if only you were better. Compared to him, you look at yourself in despair. You can't match up to who you need to become. By your age, he was already preaching his word of hemo equality. He was driven to improve things for everyone who came after him. You don't even know what you're supposed to do or how to get to any worthwhile goal, but this isn't it. You always get on your past self's case because he's fucked up, and that's true, and past you deserves that particular kick in the teeth, but he's nothing on future Karkat. Future Karkat is finally better. He's finished those books you meant to read, learned another language, achieved his goals, does something meaningful with his life, probably fucking works out or something. That's who you want to be, someone who could be good enough and competent enough to deserve your ancestors' legacy. But every moment is like opening a present on 12th Paragees Eve and getting a kick in the bulge because, surprise, future you is always just you. Isn't that the fucking worst? Overhead, there's a shrill whine. You look up to see your light flickering brighter, and then with a pop, your whole office is plunged into darkness. That'll teach you for thinking that it can't get worse. Guys, I made it in time for Big Run to start. I got 5 minutes, I think. Guys, I did it in time. Yay! That means my prediction was correct. I say that I can't accurately approximate how long the chapters will take, but I was right. Yippee! Well, that's it for the week. The winner? The winner, you say?
You are a winner! You win!
Yeah, I get, we can't both, they're having a real time right now. I just remembered that, me and Muzz can't both play Big Runner at the same time. Things very much happened, yeah. This week, isn't Carcat's mind just a fun place to be? Convincing himself that he's the worst. Well, that is where we're gonna leave off for the week. Yeah, Rose being like, please, I know you've got something for me to untangle. And Carcat's like, excuse you. You're right, but come on. And then it turned into that. Well, I am gonna go ahead and work on the VOD now. And apparently do that. I'm gonna work on the VOD, and then I'm gonna play Splatoon. So I wish you a wonderful time zone. I wish you a wonderful weekend. And I wish you a very, the next 2 weeks are gonna be super fun. We're heading into probably my favorite arc of the fic, which is Somnos arc, and I'm really excited about it. It's that good shit. It's that good shit. So I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.